Hi there. In today's video, we'll be taking you through a look at the user experience of Osirium PAM and Osirium Automation. Now, as you can see, access into the PAM solution is based over a browser, so that's the only thing that I need. I'm authenticating today with my AD user, but I can also integrate with a multi-factor authentication as well, should I wish. The user logs in. Now, depending on their AD group membership, we can grant them access to specific devices and specific access levels. However, for this particular user, all they do is search for the device they want to connect to, review the connection options. In this example, I might select remote desktop with my _ADM account because I'm a domain admin in the environment, or I could use a local account, or I could even in fact have Osirium PAM fully automate a role-based access control. So if you wanted to think about implementing least privilege, then that's also possible as well. But for this example, we'll just click to connect, and the session establishes within the user's browser. So there's nothing that ever gets transmitted back towards the user's workstation. And by the time they're actually connected onto this session, we're using the privileged account. There's no way that I'm actually exposed to the password of what the _ADM account actually is. In addition to that as well, because we're launching these connections through the user's browser, if the user has any form of malware running on their workstation, there's no way that that malware can actually traverse onto the target. And then the user might run a command here, which is pretty useful because we also support the keystroke monitoring as well as full video and screen recording. So we'll just demonstrate a command here very briefly. We'll run that in there. And there we can see if we ever needed to filter back across any sessions where this command has been detected, that's possible with the auditor's access. Okay, so we'll just simply go ahead and log out. So when we're talking about RDP and SSH connections, these are the ones that we typically grant to the most senior members of the team, network admins, domain admins, etc. With PAM further, you can actually think about granting somebody access to a specific application. So we may now think about, instead of a tier 3 level of access, now a tier 2, where we want somebody to run or interact with a specific application without actually giving them full-blown access to the operating system where that application is stored, because they could be overprivileged, they could access something that they're not supposed to, they may make a mistake, etc., etc. So with Osirium PAM, we can also provision a user to use a specific application. Now, if I want to use just Active Directory users and computers as an example, then that's certainly possible. I could be a level 2 engineer in a help desk, or a DBA, or somebody accessing the thick client for a particular firewall. We can give the user access to just the application to restrict what they can connect with and what they can actually do. So as you can see now, I've only got access to this particular application. So if my job role is simply to administrate users of the domain, then you only need to give me Active Directory users and computers. You don't need to give me full-blown RDP access because I may be tempted to assist a friend in removing a particularly annoying GPO, for example. So I can come in here, I can manage users' credentials and passwords and everything else that I might be able to do within this particular application for Active Directory, but I can't do anything more. And we'll come out of this session here. We could look at a few more examples of other types of connections that we can provide access to. So things like connectivity to a SaaS console, that's certainly possible through PAM. I've already covered DBAs, but we've got access to a SQL server there using just the SSMS tool instead of actually full-blown RDP onto the server. And there are additional controls that you can put in place as well when people are accessing devices. So if, for example, I wanted to connect over SSH to this particular firewall, I need to submit a request for approval, which needs to get approved consequently before I can actually connect to that system. So potentially where third parties are concerned, we can look to provide some additional context around their connection. Everything that's going on in here as well, we are collating the events. We can also send these across to a syslog server, as well as our onboard reporting and audit information, where you can build up a clear picture of who's done what, where, when, how, and why. There is another step to this process, and this is in fact allowing somebody to potentially automate a process without actually allowing them to connect at all. So for those users who may be perhaps first-line engineers in a help desk or a third party, with Osirium Automation, you can delegate them just a particular task without the actual permissions for them to connect to the system at all, which means that they could become more productive and we can shift left some of these keeping the lights on tasks to these lower privileged members of staff. So within the automation product, we can filter on these tasks that are available to us, either on the tags or by the name of the task there. We'll simply tick the service task, and we can see that this is a task to enable us to manage services across Windows systems. Now, before we get into it, the automation side of things really is a framework that enables organizations to automate whichever processes they like in whichever order they like. Processes can also be triggered over API and also ran on a schedule, and we can also integrate with things such as email approval before a change gets made, and also ticketing integration is possible as well. But for this example, we'll just run through a typical help desk task. Now, before we get into this as well, it's important to note that if we want to do any form of service management on a Windows machine, we need to connect using RDP, and we need to use an admin account to actually access and interact with services.msc, which typically isn't something that you typically want to give to perhaps a lower privileged members of staff in a particular help desk, for example. So when we're running these tasks, we're first of all given some information as to what the task will do, and then we're also going to be prompted on what we need. Now, how our automation product is different from things like RPA and other such vendors in the space is the way that we handle and retrieve those privileged credentials. So for this example, we'll be connecting to our Osirium PAM to retrieve a credential to then connect to these systems. The product does also offer integration with things like HashiCorp and other credential vaults and storage platforms that are available on the market. This user in this example only has the access to restart one of 3 services, which is important to mitigate the risk of error. So we're just simply going to restart the Windows Update service across these different servers. Now, in this example, again, these servers are ones that I have access to in PAM, but this could be from any other asset management system or solution. Tick the systems we want to manage the service on, and then we'll go ahead and connect to them with the privileged credential that we've securely retrieved from PAM. We're now going to see what the status of the service is, and we're given some prompts. Would we like to run the service? Yes. So as well as being able to handle the expected and unexpected events, we can allow the user, whilst they're running the task, to actually provide us with some other actions. And there we have it. That's a job done tick. We've securely delegated the permission to run a task rather than actually relying on the user to connect manually. Similarly with PAM, with automation, there is also onboard activity reporting and syslog integration to get real-time picture on what people are actually doing. But there we have it. We've not delegated the privilege, we've just delegated the task. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to know more, please get in touch.